Another day, another video without me doing my hair. Hello everyone, my name is October and this is Nerd Boy Reads, a channel in which I talk about the things that I've been reading recently. If you're new around here, welcome. If not, welcome back. I would say we're back on schedule if I didn't take a week-long hiatus, well, a week-long break between videos, but you know, a week is a week and it's better than months and months and months or whatever, but what can I say? I'm an adult, life got busy. Either way, I decided to update you finally on what I have been reading, considering this is a channel in which I talk about what I have been reading, and I haven't done that. So, as of about Friday, I believe, as of recording this, I have finished 20 books. Yay! It's not a huge milestone, considering that there are people out there who have probably finished like 70 books out there. But considering everything that's been going on in my life and the fact that I only decided to read 50 books this year, 20 books in 3 months feels like a big milestone, and it makes me realize that I could read a lot more than I have been giving myself credit for, even with some of the books that I have been slow on. Like, there have been some in here that I've had to get rid of simply because I hated them so much I couldn't justify keeping them on my shelves. And then there were just some meh books that I couldn't put myself through any faster than I was reading, so I had to pace myself with those. And we're going to go through all of them right now. We're going to go in chronological order starting from January. I think I did manage to read one book on January 1st, which, you know, not very great, but it was a small book, so the one book one day into the year, pretty great for me, I think, regardless of the size, so don't judge me. I've been reading some varying sizes, but the first book I read was very short. The book I am talking about is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This was a great introduction to this series. This is the first book in the Wayward Children series. This is about a group home where children return after they get taken into magical portals and magical universes. They go on adventures and then they recover in this house, either for modern society or to just, you know, act normal enough to make it in life. This turned in, spoilers by the way, this turned into a murder mystery in the middle of it, and I really enjoyed the twist of one of the other people who were in this book, the side character, turning into a murderer simply because she wanted to open her doorway again so badly. I enjoyed the characters. It felt really fairy tale-like. I think I've heard this and TJ Klune's books described as young adult books for adults, like fairy tales for adults, and this really holds up to that. The characters were very realistic. I enjoyed the exploration of what happens to these chosen ones after they get back, the trauma, the hardships, the adjustments that have to be gone through to make it to back into modern society after they've gone on these magical adventures. My favorite characters by far were Jack and Jill. I really enjoyed the play on the word, the fairy tale of Jack and Jill, and hearing somewhat about their adventures, and then seeing Jack. Jack was one of my favorite characters of all time. I enjoyed the trans coding in there. I don't know if Jack was actually confirmed to be a trans character, but they felt very trans to me. I enjoyed the hearing about their experiments, all their stuff, their obsession with cleanliness. It's so good. I enjoyed the slander of Narnia. I've never read Narnia. I've seen like 1.5 movies, and I thought that was hilarious how they shamed him for like using the experiences of magical kids as fodder, even though he'd never been on an adventure, even though he has no experience with them himself. I think that was hilarious. And all in all, great entry, great first book. I cannot wait to read more. There is one more that I have in this pile. I believe it was one of my most recent reads, so you're going to hear about that much later in the video. And then I have one more on my shelf, and I'm slowly collecting these. I'm trying to find them as used as possible or to get them during the Barnes & Noble half-off hardback sale, because I refuse to pay $20 for less than 200 pages worth of book. I just won't do it. So this is one of my least priority books. And I'll just pick them up as I see them, but so far I'm enjoying this series and I can't wait to see everyone else's adventures and misadventures as they go on in this series. This next one has inspired me to pick up every book in this series, even though I've read one, and you know how that usually goes for people. They pick up one, they read it, they're disappointed by the rest of the series, and now they're just stuck with it. Either that, or they pick it up and they're disappointed with it, and now they have to finish it because they have them, which is coming up soon. Spoilers for the later in the video. Either way, I was very, very impressed with this next book. It enthralled me. This is the year of me reading Sherlock Holmes retellings, and this is the first, and so far I am very impressed. So I picked up the next 2 in the series, and then I'm gonna go pick up the rest of them as I can get my hands on them. But the book I am talking about is Sherlock Holmes and the Christmas Demon by James Lovegrove. This is actually the 3rd book in a series of murder mysteries written for Sherlock Holmes. It's called the Lovegrove Holmes series, I believe. This is actually book 4, and they can be read out of order, I have found, because they're just a collection of murder mysteries and you don't really need to know a lot of context going in. Plus, if you have like the basis of Sherlock Holmes, you already know what's happening, and this is no exception. This is about Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, told from John Watson's journal point of view. He is recounting the tale of a Christmas murder mystery that he and Holmes have been summoned to solve, and all the twists and turns that go on from that. I'm not going to spoil this. I'm not going to talk about this book in great detail because it is a murder mystery, and if I tell you anything, it'll be a spoiler. But I really love the attention to detail. I really enjoy all of the characters. Holmes, by far, is probably one of my favorite portrayals of Sherlock Holmes in written history, in modern history that I have read, and I cannot wait to read the other 2 books I got from him. Spoilers about this series though, the covers change halfway through. So there is, the first 3 books have like this black cover with all of the detailing done in color, but as you can see, the next book after book 4 through 6 goes through this change where they put all of the color on the front, and then the detailing is done in black. So if that bothers you, if you're a collector and you need like order and stuff like that, do not pick up this series simply because it will ruin you have it changing colors halfway through. But I personally have accepted that simply because I love this book so much. I cannot wait to read the next 2. It may be after the next book I'm going to read because I'm almost done with one, but we'll get there. Love this. The whole is it supernatural elements of everything is great. As you can tell, the Christmas Demon hints at supernatural elements that are thrown through in this book, and they're used really well. I love everything about this. I cannot wait to read the next books that I have, and I can't wait to pick up more of these. But like I said, if you can't stand cover changes halfway through, don't pick it up. I'm pretty much done because, like I said, it is a murder mystery. You have to read it yourself in order to get the full experience, and I highly recommend you do. If you want a good Sherlock Holmes retelling, start with Lovegrove's Holmes. It also helps that Mr. Lovegrove has written another series of Sherlock Holmes mysteries that I'm planning on picking up after I collect the rest of this one, and luckily they're all super easy to find used, so that's probably going to be my next journey. But for now, I am on those, and yes, but we're going to move on to my next one, which is a nonfiction book. This is like the only nonfiction book that I was able to get into. Normally I am not really into nonfiction books. I have another one sitting on my shelf over there, but that's going to be read later. I can't even tell you when, just later. But this one I was really interested in simply because I am going through a phase. It's an odd phase, but it is a Victorian medical phase, so that's why I picked up The Butchering Arts by Lindsay Fitzharris about Joseph. This follows the life of Joseph Lister and his progress and goal of making Victorian medicine better by improving the cleanliness and the surgical practices in the Victorian era. Yeah, Victorian era. It was so good. It's very gruesome though. Like, as you expect in Victorian medicine, there's not a lot of sterilization, there's not a lot of numbing. It's a race to get the treatment done before the person either dies or runs out or catches infection. And even if you manage to survive the surgery, there is a high chance that you will simply die because of infection. It is mentioned in this book that a lot of people opted to have surgeries done in their homes or to simply not go and get treated at all because the likelihood of you surviving in the hospital is much lower than if you just waited out, if that was possible. Like amputation, people opted to be amputated at home because the tools that people used were just simply one right after another, so it was chop chop out, and they would just leave all of the blood and viscera on the tools right when they go to the next person. Leicester found that disgusting and came to the conclusion that that is why more people died in the hospital than anywhere else, and he fixed that. We watch him go suffer and learn and come up with theories and put them into practice and see how he became one of the most renowned doctors and surgeons in the Victorian era, and it was super interesting. I really enjoyed learning about the medical processes of Victorian era medicine. Like I said, I went through a phase. I'm still technically in that phase, but it's not as hard as I would like it to be. So this was a good introduction, and it gave you a lot of information. If you want a good reference point to Victorian era medicine, start with this book. It's informative, it's interesting, it's gruesome, and I highly recommend it. It's written really well too. Like, normally, like I said, I'm not into nonfiction, but Lindsay Fitzharris wrote in a way that made me keep wanting to read more. And yeah, just go ahead and pick it up if you have the stomach for it. Like I said, it's gruesome. It's very unsanitary. If you have medical phobia, this will probably not help, so look out for that. Next is another really short one in a series that I am currently, another series that I am currently reading through, and that is Artificial Condition, the second book in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. This one was much better than the first one. Don't get me wrong, I loved reading Murderbot's entire spiel. I loved how they were obsessed with television and learning things and just wanted to lie back and do nothing, but they were put in this position where they have to work. I loved that. I loved the murder mystery element of the first one, but seeing Murderbot just trying to live normal life and hide and be on the run with this sassy AI gave me life. I loved their relationship with this AI. The AI probably was my favorite character. I loved their problem solving. I loved how they shared media, and I loved how Murderbot taught the AI pretty much a lot about human interactions through the use of old sitcoms and old dramas and old sci-fi shows and all of that. It was really interesting to read about two non-humans trying to be human and interact and connect, and it's really sweet. There wasn't a lot of drama in this one that I can remember. It was mostly just Murderbot trying to deal with the repercussions of their... Actually, no, there was drama. Near the end, we start learning more about the Murderbot's murder spree that they went on. That made them labeled as a rogue, that gave them their whole rogue protocol. I think that was one of them. Either way, seeing them try to uncover why they went crazy all of those years ago and murdered their employers, and why the other robots murdered their employers, that's another thing that we deal with, was just really interesting to read about. It's written really well. It's another one of those really short ones like Every Heart a Doorway, so it didn't take me long to get through this. It helps that it's written in a way that made me want to just keep on reading, and I loved this book. I cannot wait to read the next two. I have two more because I bought a box set of 4, and then I believe there is one more in this series, and yeah, I can't say much because it's not that long, but it's very interesting. I'm glad that I found this series through YouTube, and I found the first 4 used, so I am very excited to keep going with it, and I'll keep you posted as I read through them. That was probably the shittiest recap of that series, but this was kind of earlier in the year, so I don't remember a lot about it. I just remember loving it and wanting to read more, but I'm trying to pace myself with a lot of these things because there is a series, and I cannot find the 5th one used yet. I don't think that's come out. I don't even know if there is a 5th one out. I'm pretty sure there is, so I'm trying to read through the 4 that I have as slow as possible so I can get my hand on the 5th, and then there's more coming out, so I'm just kind of trying to pace myself, but that was really good. I highly recommend the Murderbot Diaries if you haven't picked it up yet. Another series I highly recommend if you haven't picked it up yet is the Jane Austen Murder Mysteries by Tazara Price, and the next book that I read was the second one in that, and that is Sense and Second Degree Murder. This follows Eleanor Dashwood as she tries to figure out who murdered her father and why, and bring her family back from poverty to live better. I loved the relationship between the Dashwood sisters. If you can tell that Tazara Price either did her research about sibling behavior or has siblings herself, because the interactions were spot on. I enjoyed the chemical elements of it, the scientific elements, the investigation elements. I have really been in a murder mystery cap recently. Like, I just want to read all of them. So this really hit the spot. I really am enjoying the series so far. There's only 2 out, and I believe there is a 3rd one coming out in June. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. I went through Pride and Premeditation really fast, and Sense and Second Degree Murder wasn't any different. These are really fast to get through. I really enjoyed how they changed perspective through the sisters, and the whole romance element was a kind of through line, but it wasn't really that noticeable, so it's easy to overlook if you're not into that. The characters were fun. The whole sisters trying to protect their mother from danger, even though it's the mother's job, but the mother is so thrown through a loop that they just kind of have to step up, really hit something in me. I enjoyed watching the sisters try to band together to save their mother, to save their house, to try to make sure that they can get back from this tragedy that befell them when their father was murdered. And since it is a murder mystery, I'm going to leave it there. If you haven't picked up the Jane Austen murder mystery series, I highly recommend it. They're really easy to get through since they are young adult. The covers are stunning, and they're really fun to read, so go pick them up. It's very fun. That summary made it seem like I don't remember that book, but I do. But since it's a murder mystery, I'm going to keep you in suspense, which sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. It's strategy, because not a lot of people have been talking about that series, but they need to, because it's really, really, really good. It's phenomenal. Go pick them up. I highly recommend it. Another murder mystery and another Sherlock Holmes retelling, so we're really getting through both of these checklists that I'm on. This is The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz. This was phenomenal. My friend recommended it to me because she had read it before, and I bought it because it was used and it was a murder mystery, and it's a Sherlock Holmes retelling, and I am in the mood for Sherlock Holmes retellings. So I picked up House of Silk. I haven't read it until this year, and I am so glad that I did. This was horrific in the most visceral way. It was like more human horror than anything, not like actual horror. So if you're into more human drama, human horror, like the horrors of what people can do, pick this up. This is another great portrayal of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson's relationship. I really enjoyed the writing in this one. I was very surprised that I liked this one as much as I did, considering the last time I read an Anthony Horowitz, I believe it was the Magpie Murders, that didn't really do it for me. However, House of Silk really hit the spot. It really showed me what he is capable of doing when he puts his mind to writing murder mysteries. And I cannot wait to read the second one, which is Moriarty, which I originally picked up because I thought it was a single volume, well, a single standalone story, but no. So I had to read this one to get to that one, and I cannot wait to find it again. Anyway, back to House of Silk. The watching everything unfold and unwind and get more and more dire as the series went on hit just the right amount of like drama and fear and tension, and it just wound you up in a way that made you just keep reading. I don't know how long it took me to read this book, but it wasn't that long because I really, really, really just wanted to finish this book. I was on the edge of my seat every time I picked it up, and I was so sad every time I had to put it down. I thank my friend, the bestie, for telling me to read this, and I can't wait to read Moriarty. And I'm just going to leave it there because, again, it is a murder mystery. So if you're into murder mysteries and you're into Sherlock Holmes retellings, pick this one up. You know, I'm looking at all these Sherlock Holmes retellings that I have and that I've been reading, and it's a wonder that Sherlock Holmes just came into the public domain. It makes you think, like, is it plagiarism at this point? I don't know. It makes you think. Like, I thought Sherlock Holmes was already in the public domain based on just everything that I have read. But he wasn't until this year, so The more you know. Alright, so I did skip over a book, and that's simply because I don't have it, because I gave it away as soon as I finished it. And that was Rabbits by Terry Miles. If you guys remember, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you've known that Rabbits was on one of my top reads for 2023, my 5-star predictions, I think. And it was just a book that I was really looking forward to getting into this year. And boy, when I tell you, I had such a bad time with that book. Rabbits by Terry Miles is about a game that happens every once in a while where you start noticing patterns and start noticing that things are out of place, and you follow the trail until you reach the end, and the end is supposed to be whoever finds the last clue gets whatever wish they desire. And it wasn't great. The premise sounded fantastic, which is why I wanted to read it so bad, which is why I hunted it and waited until Barnes & Noble had their buy one get one off hardback sale, because I thought I knew I was gonna love that book. But the execution was so poor. It was just a bunch of people running around doing the same thing over and over again, and it was just bad. To me, anyway. I think a lot of other people really liked this book, but I wasn't one of them. It was marketed as a sci-fi, but it felt more like a human drama mystery until the very end. Like, the whole first fifth, like the first 7/8 of the book was people running around, finding things, talking to people, getting told they shouldn't play the game, playing the game anyway, having consequences, considering quitting the game, and then discovering something else, going to talk to more people, learning something else, getting told that they're not going to play the game, that they shouldn't play the game, continuing to play the game anyway, consequence, considering quitting, and the cycle just continued over and over again, and it was so repetitive and boring. The characters didn't make sense to me. I had to suspend a lot of disbelief to even keep going through the book. It was not in the enjoyable way. Like, a lot of books have to have a certain level of suspension of disbelief to get through anyway, like high fantasy and all of those things. Some people just don't make sense, and you have to suspend a lot of disbelief to get through that. But this was in the bad way. Like, it gave mental health a bad name, it gave mysteries a bad name, and then in the last, like, eighth of the book, the last like 20 to 50 pages, we suddenly introduce elements of the multiverse and all these finding patterns to make the universes collide and trying to keep the universes separated, and it just didn't make sense for the build-up. I hated it so much. Like, I couldn't care less. I considered DNFing, but Mama didn't raise a quitter, but she surely raised a fool, because I should have left that book alone. It was so bad. I'm just glad I got rid of it, and I'm never going to read it again. So getting back in order, we have Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the first official book in the Witcher series, and this series is now on thin ice. I thought I would love this series. This was one of the series, one of the books, one of the everything that I was most excited to read about in 2023. And the more I keep up with this series, the more I'm wondering, what is the point? Like, I get that it's supposed to be this great epic fantasy that everyone loves and that is adored by fantasy fanboys everywhere. And I can see why. Like, I love the world building. I love Geralt. That's all I can say, because honestly, this series seems to stop being about Geralt after the second book of short stories. And then we switch perspectives to Ciri, which, you know, is fine. I am all for switching perspectives and not being, you know, clear about who the main character is, as long as the main character, the book that the series is named after, gets something to do. But it's starting to feel like Geralt is getting dragged through his own story. I do not like the portrayal of a lot of the female characters in this book, because it's starting to feel like every character who is a female who gets introduced in this series is the same cookie cutter, snarky bitch persona who wants to fuck Geralt, except for Ciri. So I guess that's fine because she's a minor. But I take issue because I read the second book, and we have to talk about that because it's on thin ice. It's politically driven, which I'm fine, but it feels like all of the politics have taken Geralt out of it because he tries to be neutral, he tries to say he doesn't care, and that also adds to the feeling that he is being dragged along in his own story. This is mostly about Ciri being trained to be a witcher and then a sorcerer. I don't like how they portrayed Ciri's first period and having her be like this, having someone yell at the rest of the witches for not treating her like a delicate flower, because apparently everyone who has a period needs to be treated like a delicate flower when they have their period. I don't remember a lot about this book. This is the first one I can honestly say I don't remember a lot about because I have super skimming powers and I had to skim through it to get through this book. So yeah, I'm very disappointed that I don't like this as much as I thought I would. I don't mind politically driven fantasy series. I love human drama. I love character interaction. I love character driven stories. But this just feels like I don't even know what it feels like. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't do it for me. I'm not having a great time anymore. I love the collection of short stories, but now that we're into the series proper and I really get to feel how Andrzej Sapkowski writes female characters and how he handles political drama and making the main character not the main character, I take issue with that, so... Then another relatively meh book is actually a light novel. This is Sarazanmai. This is about a group of kids who get the magical girl transformation power of turning into Kappa. And it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I love this. I can see why it is beloved. I really get the whole hype about it, but it definitely feels like it would be better in anime form. It was very monster of the week, and it would just serve better as an anime, so I'm probably going to watch that, but it was fun. I enjoyed the interactions between the three main characters. I really enjoyed seeing these two in action. I actually bought the manga spinoff of these two before I even bought the light novel and before I even started the anime. So seeing them have their little sassy gay moments, even though it's not really sure if they're gay, but they're very gay coded. They even got their own spin-off manga where they're pretty queer coded. Anyway, not a lot to say about it. If you like Monster of the Week, young kid anime, you'll love this. That's probably how I'm gonna have to watch it. It's on Crunchyroll, so I'm probably gonna watch this to get the full effect, but it was fine. I'm not gonna get rid of it. I have the second one because there's another one, so that's probably what I'm gonna be reading really soon. Yeah, it was cute. It was fun. I'm gonna watch the anime now. It inspired me to watch the anime, so I guess that's what it was meant to do. Next one is the second in a trilogy that I had thought I accidentally dropped. If you remember, if you go back and watch my, all of my active series video, you'll see that I've put Maggie Stiefvater's The Dreamer Trilogy on the accidentally dropped list. It's not true, because this year I read Mr. Impossible, and hoo boy, was it a ride. I love this. Maggie Stiefvater's writing is phenomenal. I love how she balances all of the characters and really humanizes all of them, because we follow the point of view of about 5 characters in this, and they're so well fleshed out. Their motives are laid bare, and we really get to deeply explore every single character in this book to their, like, deepest core. I really enjoyed Declan's humanization and his little romance arc he has with Jordan. That was cute. Matthew's whole coming to terms with the fact that he's a dreamer. Well, he's a dream. He's Ronan's dream. Jordan trying to find a way to live even though Hennessy might not make it. Trying to maintain herself. Declan's just the whole thing. Declan's my favorite character. Ronan dealing with everything, getting so enraptured with this man because he feels like he has all of the answers and he just wants to protect his family, but he's going about it in such a wrong way. Everything about this book just thrilled me. I don't remember much about the first one because A, it's been so long since I read it, and B, I don't think I read it as closely as I should because I don't know why. I need to go back and reread that and the the Raven cycle, because that's also very good. But sticking on this sucked me in. This whole trying to learn to control your dreams arc that Ronan and Hennessy are on, with this really sketchy character of a man, and then Hennessy's whole trying to, like, becoming disillusioned with everything that the guy is saying. It's just phenomenal. I cannot wait to see how it all ends, because the way we ended it, Ronan's in a coma or something like that. Everyone is worried. Everyone is separated now. Everyone is more separated than they have ever been before, and I'm just so ready to get it. I'm trying to wrap up series this year. This is gonna be one of them. I'm so close. I can feel it. My bones are tingling. It's phenomenal. So, oof. I will say though, for all of the hype that I just gave it, it did kind of fall into middle book territory, but not in the bad way. Like, this did a lot of slowing down moments to really let us interact with these characters and see how they go about on their day-to-day lives and what they're doing now that they're alone or separated, but in a good way. I really enjoy taking the time to learn about these characters and really get to know them on a deeper level, to actually put stakes into what is going to happen in the last book. So it's a middle book in a good way. It's slow, but for a purpose, and it felt more character driven than the last one, and I cannot wait to read the last one. Oof. Oof. We hit another relatively meh book with the People's History of the Vampire Uprising. First, right off the bat, I hated how they kept calling vampires gloamings. Like, that bothered me the whole fucking time I was reading this book. It was not great. It's supposed to be this, like, oral history retelling of how the vampires came into power, but it didn't really serve on that aspect. Like, it was all this build-up, and all of this build-up, and all of this build-up, and we get to hear more and more about, like, the vampires doing this, and they're asking for rights, and even though they should already have rights, but that's my opinion. I just think everyone should have rights. It tells us how they were working their way up through the government, and how they started taking more and doing all of this stuff. And it was like, felt like it was building up to this big dramatic takeover, but it never happened. Like, we get to hear about people who helped vampires win the elections, and this scientist who was trying to find a cure for vampirism, and we get to see the world devolve as more and more people think that the vampire lifestyle is the best, and how they all want to be vampires now. And we get to hear about the protest of vampires asking for, like, basic human necessities, like for doctors' offices to be open later, and to have blood banks open for people to donate blood, because taking blood by force isn't great, and all of this stuff, and how vampires take over the Vatican and the Catholic Church, and even becoming a pope. The pope turns into a vampire, and all of this stuff, all while it keeps getting hinted at that something really big is gonna happen, and the scientist is racing against time, trying to maintain, like, stability while she's being blocked out, because she's trying to find the cure for vampirism, because even though all these people are turning vampire, for every vampire they make, like, 5 die because the process goes wrong, and people are just so consumed with the allure of vampires that they don't see that they're actually, like, becoming issues, and that they're kidnapping people and draining their blood and all of this stuff. And we're supposed to be believing that something really big is about to happen, but the big thing that's supposed to happen never happens. It was very disappointing in that way. Like, it took me a second to get into it. It took me about, like, maybe 50 to 100 pages to get into it. And then the middle part was really good, and then the ending was very abrupt, and it didn't really leave a good taste in my mouth. So I feel like the next time I clean my shelves off, this is definitely going to be one that I give up, because it just didn't do it for me. So I was expecting more from this big vampire book, and it just didn't deliver. Also, they didn't use vampire to describe the vampires, except for, like, 2, maybe 3 instances, so that also bothered me. So yeah, highly disappointed, very meh book. But you know what wasn't a meh book? Another light novel. We have Itachi's Story Part 1, Daylight. Itachi is such a great character. I am doing a reread of Naruto. I'm kind of tracking my process on Instagram, but not really. But I have read most of the first like official Naruto arc, and then I read like the first 4 volumes of Shippuden. So I'm really in a big Naruto mood. Naruto is one of the first anime that I ever got into. It came on, you know, Toonami, Cartoon Network when it was able to, like late night Cartoon Network, and I used to watch it 3-part, like 240 HP, whatever, in 3 parts on YouTube because I was so enthralled with this story. So the fact that I'm getting back into it now and the fact that it's still holding up as, I mean, I do take issues with it. I do have some issues with it, like, but overall it's still such a really great story, and the light novels are no different. Like, I loved this. This is my first Naruto light novel, and I'm so glad it was. Itachi wasn't really one of my favorite characters when I went into Naruto. He was mostly my bestie's favorite character, and he still is because he's such a great character. And getting his backstory, like seeing how he grew up with all of these expectations placed on him because he was the oldest son of the head of the Uchiha clan, and seeing how he got traumatized really badly by the attack of the Nine-Tailed Fox on the village, and how he shifted his whole mindset to, I want to be able to rule the world to make sure it stays safe, is like, I love characters with motivations like that. Like, he's a prodigy who puts all this pressure on himself simply because he wants so much for the world around him to keep himself, his family, specifically his brother Sasuke, safe. And it's so good, like, watching him just fly through everything because he wants to make sure that he can accomplish his goals as fast as possible. Essentially, his goals boil down to, I want to eradicate the need for ninja so my brother doesn't have to fight. And watching him put all of this pressure on himself, and then having the pressure be reinforced by his father, his teachers, everyone around him, is just kind of heartbreaking. I cannot wait to read the second one. It's like most light novels, this is a very quick read, and the fact that Itachi is such a compelling character, watching his arc fall into place and see where he started out compared to what we see in Naruto and Shippuden later on. No spoilers, because I still haven't finished Shippuden. I got to a certain point, so I missed all the, and then I accidentally dropped it, so I'm very behind, but I know most of the spoilers, and just seeing his very, very beginnings was phenomenal. I cannot wait to read. I think the next one is called Midnight. I just have to find it because it's very difficult to find Naruto light novels used. Well, not used. Even in general, like, I don't know where I can find this. I'm probably going to have to buy it off the internet, and it's going to have to be soon because I am very, very ready to read the next one of these. Like, oof, very good boy. Itachi is a good boy. He deserves the world. I just want to hug him. I think everyone wants to hug Itachi if they don't want to fuck him. Next book, while being a high contender for one of my favorite books of this year and one of my favorite series of all times, is also one I can't really recommend to people because of all the issues I have with it. The book I'm talking about is called Hounded, the first book in the Iron Druid Chronicles by Kevin Hearn. Last year I read both Ink and Sigil and Blood and Paper by Kevin Hearn, and that was a spin-off of the Iron Druid Chronicles. And I had never read the Iron Druid Chronicles until, well, now. I really enjoyed seeing the main character of this series make a cameo in the last book in that duology. So I'm like, I'm going to love him. I'm going to be obsessed with this man, and I still kind of am, but it's not great. I described about The Witcher before. All of the female characters start to feel a bit the same. They all have this unexplained attraction to the main character, which, you know, is fine. But I take issue with the fact that we're supposed to believe that all of these people a lot of the people in this series in this book specifically have been alive for thousands and thousands of years, and they've seen the rise and fall of civilizations and all this stuff. They're all powerful deities, and they can do all of this stuff, but they all act like college kids. They one of the characters falls into like the born sexy yesterday trope, where she doesn't really understand human customs, and it's weird. The main character is supposed to be this druid who's seen everything, and he's super powerful and blah blah blah, but he's a college kid. Essentially, like, I do not believe that the main character, Atticus, is supposed to be this all-powerful being who's been alive for thousands and thousands of years. He just feels like some kid I'd meet at a concert or whatever. I have issues with the way that every single female character we're introduced to automatically just has an attraction to this man. I also have issue with Atticus's dog, because he feels like he's entitled to... It's just, he's another college kid, but the, like, horny kind, where all he wants to do is fuck all of the time, which isn't great to read about. So I took issue with that. But all of that being said, I love this book. I cannot ethically recommend this to people because of all the issues that I've just stated. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief that has to go on to enjoy this book, and I found myself rolling my eyes a lot at everything that went on in this book. But I couldn't put it down. I think I read this in like 1.5 sittings, and I cannot wait to read the next ones. The covers are stunning. I really enjoy these new covers because the last ones just are generic fantasy male raw covers, but these are great. And I cannot wait to read this series. It's so bad, but I cannot wait to read more of it. I do not know why. Like, this is definitely fantasy written by men, male power fantasy, badly written female characters all around. It's almost as bad as Andrzej Sapkowski's writing of female characters. But for some reason, I can let it go in this book. Like, I cannot wait to read the next. There are 10 books in this series. I am pretty sure there are 10 books in this series, and I cannot wait to read every single one of them. I am going to devour this series, but I don't know why. I don't. I guess it's like the male brain in me. I love this book so much. I don't think anyone else should read it. Ooh. We're gonna leave that there. We're gonna leave it right there, because, like, I feel like I'm losing credit for... What the hell? I let a Starbucks coupon expire. Moving on, we have another book that I had to suspend a lot of disbelief for, and I loved every second of it. Clown in a Cornfield 2, Frenda Lives. This is a follow-up to the Clown in a Cornfield book. This is the aftermath of watching everyone try to put their lives back together after the massacre at Kettle Farms. And we get to see how the town adjusts, how the people who survived the massacre adjust. And surprisingly, we get to see internet culture at its finest. Well, kind of. Because like in any situation that involves like a massive tragedy, there's always going to be a vocal group of people who believe that everything is a conspiracy theory, nothing actually happened, and that everyone is just lying about everything. Which is fine. We're always going to have those people. But I kind of take issue with everything else about how that is portrayed. I cannot bring it in me to believe that if people see the victims of a tragedy, that they would just walk up to them and treat them as like some sort of celebrity, unless they put themselves into the celebrity spot. Well, not the celebrity spotlight, like activist spotlight. Like, because these kids really just want to go about their lives like normal and try to adjust. They take their own routes. Like, some of them try to act like it never happened. Quinn and Rusty take the route of super protective, all of these combat trainings, all of these prevention methods, self-defense classes, shooting, whatever. And then Rust's boyfriend takes the route of trying to act like it never happened and try to put it behind him, trying to move on and act like everything is fine, even though everyone is dealing with PTSD. Everyone is doing their own thing and trying to get over it and trying to move on as best they can, but some of them just can't. Like, they watch their friends get burned alive and die and shot and stabbed and ripped apart in front of them, and some people just want to act like that's fake, and then others want to act like it never happened. Someone built a amusement park type thing, like a Halloween haunted attraction, on the exact same site where the massacre happened. I don't think that would be allowed to happen. That's just me. I don't believe, but then again, the only reason I am giving a pass to the ending where all of the people get together and try to, like, root for the villain, like the friendo, and kill the people because the friendo was right and the adults were right and they have to kill the other generation, so they get this mob together to storm the streets and drag the last 3 survivors out and kill them. The only reason I can let that slide is because I let it slide in the Batman when the Riddler's gang got together and stormed Mayor's inauguration and tried to kill everyone. And I ate Batman up, so I can eat this up. That's fine. Internet people be wild. I stay away from the internet. I don't stay away from the internet. I stay away from that side of the internet for a reason. Either way, this book was phenomenal. It wasn't as violent as the last one because a lot of the first book took place during the massacre itself, and this is mainly dealing with life after the massacre. There are some horrific elements, and there are some very visceral scenes of gore and violence, but it's not as prevalent as it was in the last one. This definitely felt like a sequel book, not necessarily an unnecessary sequel. Like, this was really great. I always enjoy books about characters trying to overcome their trauma and dealing with the repercussions that come with it. But I just had to suspend a lot of disbelief about how the world treated these victims of a massacre and all of that jazz. But I loved it. I loved it so much, and this is definitely a series that I won't mind rereading. And there may be a third one. I don't know. Like, there's a hint in the back that he's like, who knows, maybe if I put this, oh my god. I just realized I put the dust jacket on upside down on the book, but whatever. I'm gonna do that now, so you're gonna have to hear that. There is a little snippet at the end where Adam Caesar is like, people didn't know that the second one was coming out, so maybe one day they won't know a third one's coming out. And I don't know if that means he's gonna write a third one, because I don't think that a third one would be necessary. Because I think this would be a good stopping point. So, yeah, great duology. I'm so glad I finally finished this series, and yeah, great. Alright, so the next book that I read, I cannot hold up for you because I unhauled it. It was Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. I talked about it in my last video, actually, all of the books that I am unhauling. So if you want an explanation of why I got rid of it, go watch that. But long story short, it was disgusting in the bad way, and I couldn't vibe with it. Next is another light novel that I could vibe with, and that is Durarara Volume 2. This encaptures all of the Saika arc of Durarara, and as always with anything Durarara media related, I freaking loved it. I love Durarara. It's one of those series that I believe is very underrated, is very underhyped. It doesn't get any of the love it deserves. It's so good. There is magical elements. There is people who throw buses and trucks and yank stop signs out and use that as a weapon. There is headless people. There is underground surgeons, there is gang drama, there's human drama, there's high school drama. There's something for everyone in this series, and no one talks about it enough. I just read volume 7 of the newest arc that is coming out. Volume 8 is coming out in August, so I am trying to fill the void with light novels, and this one very much hit the spot. The Saika arc is probably one of my favorite arcs in Durarara, and watching it continue to play out in I watched it in the anime, I read it in the manga, and now I'm reading it in the light novels, and I am thrilled to continue on with this series. I cannot go on about this much. If you want to watch Durarara, do it. I'm pretty sure the way it's releasing is light novels, anime, and then manga. So if you watch just the anime, it pretty much follows beat for beat the light novel, which the manga is beat for beat following. But the light novels do add another layer of everyone's inner thoughts. I really enjoy the narration. I really enjoy the translation. The characters are phenomenal. There are about 15 people we are following in this series, and every one of them gets a great arc. Every one of them gets their own focus for a period, and everyone gets really, really, really fleshed out so well. These first 3 light novels, like the first 3 arcs, in Durarara, and the first 3 arcs in the anime, really focus on the main 3 people, which are Mikado Ryugamine, Henri Sonohara, and their best friend, which isn't on this cover, Masaomi Kida. So each of the arcs, we really get to know each one of them, and then it branches out so we can figure out and learn about everyone else as the series goes on. So this arc really focuses on Henri and her backstory, her way of living, her thought process, her emotional state. Everything that happens to her happens for a reason, and we get to see it play out so well. Oh my god. I really didn't tell you, but this light novel specifically, like I said, follows the Saika arc, which is a slasher going around slashing people for seemingly no reason. But as the series goes on, we learn that there is also a online hacker parasite called Saika who invades chat rooms right before and right after the slashings happen, and we get to see how those are connected, how everyone in the series is connected to the Saika and to each other. It's so well. It's another one of those series like Attack on Titan where everything is a plot point and everything means something to someone, and it has some impact on something somewhere that'll have repercussions down the line that I can't talk about because it's so complex and everyone is so well written. I love Durarara so much. I love it so much. If you haven't picked up Durarara, but like all the things that I described earlier, pick it up. Watch the anime. I believe it's on Netflix. You can find it. It's very easy to find. Read the light novel if you're not into that. If you're into manga, read the manga. It's so good. Interact with the series. Give this series more love. I'm going to stop myself here because I could go on about this series forever. It's one of my favorites, and it deserves all of the hype it can get. So go out and read Durarara. And then immediately after that, we have the most meh book I have ever read in my entire year, and that is Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is by the same author as Mexican Gothic, I believe it was. And I couldn't vibe with it. This is about a vampire named ATL. That one. She is trying to survive being hunted by this massive group of other vampires. And she takes on this apprentice vampire. Well, he's not a vampire, but this apprentice kid named Domingo. And they're just trying to survive. This balances between Alt's point of view, Domingo's point of view, the villain's point of view, the villain's butler's point of view, and the detective who's trying to follow everything's point of view. And it was meh. The main villain, the main antagonist, was very one-dimensional. We don't get to see... He's just one of those spoiled rich kids who got told no, and now he goes on a murder spree. The detective was pretty one-note too. The main character was pretty one note. Domingo was pretty one note. Everyone was pretty one note. The world building was cool though. Like, I will give it points for world building and the varying types of vampires that she came up with, but it just felt like she put all these things together but didn't really have a solid plan of what to do with them. And this book came out of it. It was very, very meh. I don't have feelings one way or another towards it. I'm probably going to get rid of it because I don't see myself rereading it. The dog is on the front cover. Doesn't really do much. I love the dog. I always love dogs. Very meh. I don't have a lot to say about it. I just read it, but I couldn't tell you much about it besides everyone was very one note. And wasn't a lot of growth from anyone. Very repetitive too. Like, the main character constantly goes through these cycles of, I'm so useless, I should have trained more, I should have been more prepared, yada yada yada, regret. And it's very boring to read about. I have no feelings on this book. I read it, I got it off my shelf. That's about it. And then another kind of meh book that really picked up at the end. This is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I wanted to read this last October because it was supposed to be a horror book, but I never really got around to it. And I read it recently. This is like the third most recent book I read. And it was pretty meh. The first book, the first half, like any real, like all the classics that I read before, is very like slice of life. We get to see Dorian Gray as he was. We get to see him live his life. He gets told he's pretty a lot. He gets worried about being pretty. All of his picture, and then he starts committing atrocities. And the picture starts taking on the atrocities so he doesn't have to. It was very interesting. I liked it. It was okay. It was great. It was very unsubtly gay, which I really appreciated. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I never really have a lot to say about classics. I feel like it went on a bit long, though, simply because a lot of it was just a lot of people sitting down and talking about how pretty Dorian Gray is, which, don't get me wrong, I love talking about pretty boys, but we don't need to hear it every time he's on page. Everyone's obsessed with him. It goes to his head, and he starts committing crimes and sins and being a college boy, essentially. He goes from being this like innocent guy who like doesn't really have any world experience, and then he meets his friend. Well, his friend is painting his portrait because he's become his muse. And then his friend who's painting him introduces him to another friend who introduces him to indulgence and, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically the pleasures of the flesh. And he becomes obsessed with that to the point of disregarding everyone around him and just trying to pleasure himself. And it was good. It was good. I'll reread it. I'll keep it around. It was interesting. I thought it was going to go a different way, but it made sense at the end, simply because the only interaction I've had with Dorian Gray was from The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and spoilers for the end of the book if you haven't read this. In League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, all they had to do was show Dorian Gray his picture, and then it went into him, like all of his aging and stuff went into him. But in this book, in the book, he stabbed the painting and then it went into him, but it turns out he stabbed himself. So yeah, that was a wild twist. I enjoyed that. But yeah, I'd reread it. Good book. Really interesting. I'm glad I read it. I can't say I'm gonna reread it soon because I have so many more books that I need to get through, but I'm glad I read this one. You know how in the first Witcher book I said that it was on thin ice? This put cracks in the ice. This really put the forefront of my issues with The Witcher into, like, my face to the point where I couldn't ignore it. It's hardly about... this is The Time of Contempt by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the second official book in the Witcher series, so forgot I mentioned that. But going back to my issues with this book, we hardly see Geralt anymore. It mainly follows Yennefer and Ciri as Ciri is training to be a sorceress. all of the women inexplicably want to fuck Geralt some more. During this main, it started getting interesting in the end, well, near the end, when this whole coup d'etat is starting, and we don't know where Geralt's gonna fall because he's tired of remaining neutral now that he's seen the consequences of his neutrality. Right before that, I took issue with the fact that this huge political gathering of these sorcerers, this conference, was held by people who were hardly dressed, and every time we met a woman, they took the time to put in specific detail how nearly naked this woman was. It was like they took tissue and just slapped it on. Nothing was covered, and they took the time to detail that in more detail than I care to remember. It was boring until the end, and in the end we follow Ciri's, well, spoilers, in the end we finally follow Ciri through something interesting, because it's pretty much just an endless cycle of Ciri trying to learn magic and kind of failing but also learning and all this stuff and whatever. I can't even remember because I'm super skimming powers. But in the end, we follow Ciri as she gets lost in a desert after this big coup d'etat happens. And we watch her survive. We watch her bond with this unicorn. And she gets picked up by these bad guys. And you know how I mentioned how they don't sexualize Ciri in the first book? Yeah, no. Every guy that she came across in the end of this book, because they're bad, they wanted to rape her, which... They wanted to sexually assault her, which, not great, but I guess I can understand, because in the time that this was written, to show a guy was bad, they had to show him assaulting a woman and wanting to assault a woman, so I guess I can understand that. But then she gets saved by people. We're supposed to be rooting for these people who saved her, and then they go on and sexually assault her themselves, and then it made it seem like Ciri was okay with it because she found people to be with again. So she can let that go. And I just couldn't let that go. I'm going to give this series one more book. Because I have the whole series. Regrettably, I decided to buy them all and then read them all because I thought I was going to love it. But now... I can no longer ignore how this series is no longer about Geralt, how Andrzej Sapkowski writes women, and how he casually brushes aside sexual assault. So I'm going to give it one more book. I'm going to give it half a book, probably, because I am so tired of this series now. I just want to be rid of it. I don't know what I'm going to do with this series. I'm probably going to sell it, but I am done with this series as of right now. I'm going to put some distance between it, so I'm probably going to give myself like maybe June. I'm going to skip May. I'm not going to read another one of these in May because I will end up getting rid of it. But I'm going to try to put some distance between it, put some good books between it, and I'm going to give it another book, half a book, whatever. But I do not think I'm going to keep up with this series because I just can't ignore it any longer. Yeah. And then finally, the 20th book that I have read that I am glad this was a good palate cleanser. This was a marvelous fantasy. This is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. This is the second book in the Wayward Children series, where we follow my favorite characters, Jack and Jill, through their time in the realm that they were trapped in. We get to see their upbringing, how they were pretty much molded by their parents to be this perfect pair. How one was raised to be more tomboyish, even though she wanted to be a girly girl, and how one wanted to be more girly girl, but she was raised tomboyish, and they couldn't talk to their family. They were pretty much raised apart. The parents just wanted a perfect set, and how that impacted their choices that they made when they got to this magical realm. They finally got to be who they wanted to be, but they pretty much did it out of spite, so they became the worst versions of who they wanted to be. And we get to see how it made them who they were when we met them in the first book, and I ate this book up. I loved the character. I loved watching Jill's descent from, like, I'm finally wanted to, I will do anything to be wanted. Jack's whole rebellion and being more tomboyish to learn the nasty art of resurrection and stuff like that. I loved it so much. We really get to see where Jack's hypochondria came from because she was raised to be more girly. She was raised to be clean. She grew up to fear germs, and Jill wanted to be free to be more girly even though she was raised to be a boy basically. Her dad wanted a boy, the mom wanted a girl. They got twin girls, they raised them, but it was just bad. The parents didn't care. And watching that impact to how they grew up, how they lived life when they got to, how easily they embraced traveling to this magical world simply to escape and to be away from their parents, to grow up how they really wanted to. It was so compelling. I loved the ending of this book. It felt kind of rushed because it's another one of those really short ones. I would have loved at least 20 to 50 more pages to really embrace their coming back together after being separated for so long, but given what we were, I can overlook it because it was so good. I love this series. I cannot wait to read the next one that I have. I don't have the next one in the order. I wish I did. I'm probably going to end up grabbing it eventually if I see it, but for now, I'm just trying to pick these up as I can. Like I said, if I can find them used, that'd be great because I'm not paying $20 for less than 200 pages of book. But it was great. I love this series so much. I cannot wait to keep up with it. It's a good thing also that they are pretty standalone, so I don't really have to count them as a series, even though they are a series. But it makes me feel better that I didn't start another series, because I already have so many going on. Either way, great last book to have just finished. So yeah. And that is it. That has been all 20 of the books that I have been reading this far into the year. I'm not going to go through all of the manga that I have been reading because I can't exactly keep up with all of that. I do know that I am very excited to finally finish Dr. Stone because the ending is coming out in July, so I may do a whole series reflective on that. I finally got the last 4 books in the Fullmetal Alchemist series that I'm reading, but recently I've really just been into Goblin Slayer, so I just did a massive reread of the Goblin Slayer series, and I'm probably going to end up rereading Year One and Brand New Day because I have those two. I'm really enjoying everything that I'm reading so far. I am reading the last 100 pages of Library of the Dell by T.L. Huchu, so that's probably going to be in either the next wrap-up video that I do for this month, or if I end up doing another quarter video, I'm going to read it then. I'm going to tell you about it then, but be on the lookout for that. I think the next video I'm going to end up doing is the next 5 books in the Blue Exorcist series. Like I said in the first one, I'm trying to reread the series to justify why it's still on my shelf and to refresh my memory because a lot of things happened since the beginning of the series that I don't remember now that I am almost done with it. The next volume comes out in, I believe, July. So I'm going to read volumes 6 through 10 soon and then get to that. Either that or I'm probably going to end up doing a reread of Fullmetal Alchemist, so you'll hear my reflections on that because I did just get the last 4 volumes. So I can finally finish that series, so I'm going to reread that. Either way, the next video is probably going to be a manga video. Yeah, that's about it. That's been the video. This has been Nerdboy Reads. I have been October. I hope to see you in the next one. And I hope the next one comes at a decent hour. Maybe later this week, maybe next week. Who knows? It's going to be soon. But yeah, that's all for now. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.